watching WBBZ-TV, your hometown Me TV station, Springville, Buffalo.
Hi, welcome to the Daily Buzz 716. I'm Penny Wolfgang. You know, there was a time when the vast majority of people started their morning with this cup of coffee and this newspaper. Some of us still do, like me, but the world is changing, and some of you might use this instead. But if you do, no matter how you contact with the outside world, no matter how you get your news, you need to stay tuned to our show today because we have a guest that knows more about the newspaper business than anybody else here in Western New York, because he is none other than the publisher, the top man at the Buffalo News. And we are going to be talking to Warren Colville. And we have a lot of issues to talk about to do with the newspaper and the newspaper business and himself. So we want you to stay tuned for that part of our program. But before we do, as you know, every morning we try to bring everybody up to date on what's going on and what we're thinking about and what the hot topics are. And this morning we were talking about the fact that many of us were awoken from a deep sleep, really.
3 a.m.
I didn't know it was at 3 a.m. Fortunately, I'm not on that list, or it's not on because I don't know how to work my computer well enough anyway, so they would be wasting their time doing that.
Yeah, so the Amber Alert was waking everyone up this morning. That was plugged in.
Bonk, bonk.
And then it was
And the light goes on on the phone.
Yeah. And then it was on the Facebook feed.
And it says what? It says what?
And it was telling us, and I failed to know how to pronounce the name, but someone was abducted by their mother.
A 4-year-old child.
A 4-year-old child. A 4-year-old girl. Was abducted by her mother, who had had her custodial rights taken away. And I read it in brief on my phone. So I didn't get the whole, I didn't read the whole content of it. But then I went on Facebook and then I saw that other people had awoken the same way. And then as I was driving here, I saw it on a digital bulletin board.
They put it
on the highway,
on the road. They put it on the highway, on the 33, and it says Amber Alert.
And here's the thing. This one, as it turns out, probably should have been an Amber Alert. Amber Alert, because the mother, there was some fear that the mother might do harm to the child.
Danger.
But I guess we were talking earlier, how is Amber Alert overused?
Or misused.
Misused.
I think it is not. I think it isn't misused. I think it is not overused. I would rather be woken up at 3 a.m. with an Amber Alert than a kid who's taken away.
Well, I agree with you on that, but this is the first one I've got to say that I've been awakened to at 3 a.m. But you do see them on the highway a lot. We travel a lot by car. You see them on the highway, and it seems to me, tell me if I'm wrong, Judge Penny, a lot of them seem to be non-custodial parents. Now, if the non-custodial parent is a danger to the child, I see it. But if the non-custodial parent just wants custody, do we need to have an Amber Alert?
I think what the problem is, with which Mary is saying, and I totally agree, is I think we might be not just so overusing it, but misusing it, because when we're talking about like custodial disagreements when there's no danger, where the father takes very often the child out of town or away or
goes on vacation with
like
the kid,
this, or vacation, whatever. And then if they're going to make that an Amber Alert, I think the public is going to start not paying attention to when there is a situation.
Put into practice, though, how many Amber Alerts have you gotten?
Not many.
This is the first I've gotten on my phone, but they're on the highway all the time.
I take issue with even that language where we're saying then that a lot of these Amber Alerts are the non-custodial parent. There's usually a really good reason why the non-custodial parent is the non-custodial parent, because the kid shouldn't be with them. So
Not always.
Not necessarily.
Not always, because you know these are complicated family procedures,
Yeah.
and they take a long time to be resolved in the court. And as we know, it's one of the most serious issues in divorces or separations, the use of the child and
As a
who
weapon
gets the child
sometimes
as a
between
weapon,
the
whatever.
parents.
And I think if the public is going to take it seriously and be concerned, I think that's what Mary and I are both saying. It should be when there is a danger or when the child is really missing, as opposed to when, as we're talking about, okay, the court says the father should have it, or the mother should have it, and the father takes it, and then the public is thinking in their mind, oh, this child has been abducted by a stranger, this child is in danger, and this child, but that isn't always the case.
But it hasn't come to that
always the case.
oversaturation yet. If we've only
I
gotten
think I've
it,
had 3 in the past 4
and I
years.
don't recall more than 2
Yeah.
since it's been instituted.
Yeah.
I think there's probably more, not as many
there's a
that.
lot.
They probably upgraded it so it does come on cell phones at night. But I've seen a lot of them, not to this effect.
We see them in the highway, we see them in the news, but I think this is one of the first times that that you've all gotten the notice personally. And I don't know how they differentiate or how they decide when to do that. Because, like, fortunately, I told you I'm not on the
You have to agree to
computers.
allow it to come to your phone.
you
They
can
can't
do your
just send it to
settings.
your phone.
Yeah.
You have to, there are filters
is
and
that?
whatnot.
Yeah.
You have to
Oh,
allow
good.
them,
I'm
you have to
glad.
give them the right to send it to you. And I know I'm good with it. Send me all of them. This is like the updated version of the picture on the milk carton.
Right.
You remember?
Yes,
Okay, so
Which
this
they
is,
still do.
yeah, but this is using technology, right? So that we don't have to put a picture on a milk carton, because then hopefully, because of technology, won't get that far.
Well, what exactly would you do at 3 in the morning to get this? Anyway,
Well,
I mean,
we're in bed, but there might be truck drivers on the road who could,
Right.
look for the car.
okay. I'm
Though
just
there wasn't a
thinking-
car license plate in that one that I.
Well,
I
the
think
person was last seen driving down Best, so who knows?
Right. Yeah. But I mean, there are people that are awake.
And I have
Newspaper
to say,
delivery
my
people are
alarm
awake.
did not go
I think
off.
Penny
by
needs
the
to
way.
get us somewhere.
Oh.
Well, it's an interesting conversation and a serious matter. And someday we may talk about this in depth and have the people who are responsible for the Amber Alert also come in and tell us when do we send it and what are the criteria for sending it. But right now we have to move on, and after a short break we're going to, we're really excited to have Warren Colville with us so we can talk to him about the Buffalo News. So please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Daily Buzz 716. As we all know, the Buffalo News is the primary source, the only newspaper in town, of information for virtually everyone in the Western New York area. So today we are joined, and happy to say so, by the publisher and president, it's just one and the same person, of the Buffalo News, Warren Colville. Welcome, Warren. Thank you so much for joining us today. When you were a child, and everybody said, all your friends said, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a fireman, I want to be, you know where I'm going with this. Did you say I want to be the publisher and whatever the other title is of the Buffalo News, of a newspaper? Was that your dream?
You know, when I was a little kid, I actually started a little newspaper in Germany, and it was called the Weekly Bugle. I used to put out this little on a mimeograph machine because we were living in Germany, and so I was on the base with my dad, yeah. And so I produced this thing, and actually I was the editor. I wasn't the marketing person. A couple of high school kids were trying to do something to make a few bucks. So fast forward, I'm still trying to make a few bucks if we can.
We want to know, we all want to know how to advance our careers in our various fields. So can you just tell us, how did you work your way up and become the publisher? And the most important person here in Western New York, or one of them.
Well, Penny.
Influential.
You know, I think the key is you have to work hard, and people have to be willing to do the things that other people are not willing to do. And I know my thing was I would always get to the office before anybody else. And for years and years, even.
And what did you start at? What was your first job in?
Well, I always have been was always involved in sales and
Okay.
marketing, and it just grew over the years. I never really was a journalist. My journalism career started when they started to ask me to write about wine. Other than that, I was a consumer of information.
But hey, as publisher, you're a journalist now.
I am.
I mean, you're over all of it, the sales, the editorial, everything.
I am. And it's exciting.
Go
every
go
single
back
day.
to what you started to tell us about. You were the first one in every day. Talk to us about that. That's quite a work
And that's the
ethic.
marketing department. we're
And
talking
does that come from your,
Your Army brat background.
Exactly. Does it come from that, or was it a need to get the job done, or is it just your constitution?
Well,
Innate.
in the sales area, if you're, what's the old saying, the early bird gets the worm or something, but I would always get in and do the paperwork stuff, which I really didn't like to do, so I could get out on the road before anybody else. And I grew up very competitive, and I wanted to be the person that would always be the star. And so I did that from the time I was young. And when you're young and not making a lot of money, you do whatever it is you need to do. And I had a person come to me a few years ago, and they said, Mr. Colville, I know you don't understand this, but I have to have a part-time job. And I'm going, well, what are you talking about? I do understand that, because when I was young, when I was your age, I worked 3 jobs, because you do what you have to do. So the early thing started way back. I backed off a little bit on that now. I usually get in.
Now, was this at the Buffalo News?
Oh yeah, this Buffalo News.
Always
and then,
been to the Buffalo News?
No, I've been. This is my 30th year now.
Did you start at another newspaper at another market, but it was the same field?
I was born in downstate in Westchester County, and I lived in New Jersey about 25 years, and worked for small papers and big papers, and then ultimately I figured I was coming here for a few years. Fast forward 30 years,
And what was the state of the Buffalo News when you got here?
It was and is a terrific newspaper. And I came here really in the marketing area. So we did a lot of interesting things,
So
which
this
have
would have been
evolved.
like in the 80s?
So were you?
In 87.
And were there 2 newspapers in town?
Was the Courier then? When
The
you,
Courier was
by
gone.
The time, by the time you got here,
We were no longer a 2-paper town. Yeah.
So, and what is unusual is that the Buffalo News, at that point, was the afternoon newspapers. There really weren't many afternoon newspapers that survived. Most of them vanished. We were one of the few that we actually did survive.
You know how many people still call it the Buffalo Evening
There are
News
still
by
people,
mistake?
they'll
Raise
write,
your hand
they'll
if you
write
still
to
call it the Buffalo. I
the
always
Buffalo
do that.
Evening News. People still call it that.
Wasn't there a point in time when the Buffalo News was doing a morning paper and then an afternoon paper, and they
Different
weren't the
editions?
same?
We started a paper to serve that morning crowd. It was called Sunrise. And we had that for quite a few years. In 2004, we put our new presses in, $45 million presses. And that really was the catalyst for us to be able to produce the paper, all of it in the morning. But there were people that were so used to getting it in the afternoon. A good friend of mine, Dottie Gallagher, Dottie's terrific, but she said, I can't read this paper in the morning. I've got to keep it until I get home in the afternoon, because that's the way she grew up, the habit.
She's not alone.
Yeah, which I said, I don't really care when you read it, so long as you read it. You know, that's the important thing.
The problem is if you do that, which I do a lot of times, because I don't have time also, people all day say to you, did you see this? Do you know this? And if you haven't read it and you don't know it, you're in big trouble. We all want to know about the one and only person who is the most important person in the whole world that you are friends with and know and have an association with, Warren Buffett. Can you give us the background? Give us
The other
scoop?
Warren.
The other Warren. Well, that's always
Are you
funny.
named after him?
When he calls,
Warren too.
his assistant will call. I mean, it's a very small office. I think there were like 11 people running this company that's 350,000 employees now. But she'll get on the phone and says, Warren's on the phone. And so he picks up, he says, this is the other Warren. But, people are somewhat in awe of him.
Yes,
but,
for sure. We're all going, yes.
When you meet him, you could meet him at a bar in Cheektowaga. I mean, he's just a regular
He
sort of
seems
guy.
quite
I mean,
unassuming.
he really is.
Yeah. If you follow him on Twitter, he's quite.
Oh, well, he lives in Omaha.
Yeah.
I mean,
He lives in
you
a
can't
house-
be assuming and live in Omaha.
It's the same house he's lived in for many, many, many years, and it's very unpretentious. He doesn't really care about that stuff. I mean, it's not his thing. It's all about his business. But you know, people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to have lunch with him, and I'm going, well, I can call him up. I can have lunch with him. You know,
Okay,
So then where would you go? Like
well,
Ted's?
we usually, you know, no, we, you know, he always used to love to go to McDonald's, and that's his,
Oh my, the health food. What I really want to know is, can you introduce us?
What we really want to know is, does he give you stock tips and tell you?
no.
Well, he kind of does if you read his Twitter.
If you,
Right,
that's
but
right.
he gives them to everybody. We
Yeah, he
want the
does.
ones
We
he
want the
doesn't give to
insiders.
everybody. We want the
We
insiders.
want to be
That's legal.
special.
We don't talk about those kind of things. But I have on my phone, you know, I have a little Post-it note, and it's got Warren's number, and there are 70
grab his
something,
phone.
yeah, 70 something people who are like the CEOs of the different companies, and that number's for that. And you know, I call them if I need to talk to them, and nobody calls me and says, do this. I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he says, just run the company.
Yeah, we were going to ask you that. I mean, does he give you instructions? Is he involved in any day-to-day or editorial issues or even sales?
No, I mean, if I want to talk over something with him, I call him. It's very rare that he has anything to, I mean, he'll give me ideas if I call and talk to him about it, but I never hear from him about, I want you to do this, or...
He's not
And I'm
micromanaging.
sure you
No.
realize
That
how
was a good-
fortunate
what I
you are to
Oh,
have
I
an
get it.
owner like that. I've worked for many newspapers, and there aren't many who step back and say, oh, wait, my wife is going on this charity.
yeah.
We need to put that on the front page.
But obviously, he trusts you.
Well, it's for him,
Exactly.
you know, he always asks the questions, and if you read this stuff, when he buys a company, he really is buying the people. That's what it's all about. When I was made publisher, you know, I was like, well, what am I going to do? I mean, I sort of was doing it anyway for quite a while, but I thought I was going to get a list of things, and we talked on the phone literally for 5 minutes, and that was it. And he said, just do what you're doing.
And how long ago was that?
That was a little more than 4 years ago.
And a lot has happened since then.
There's a
and
lot
we
has
have a
happened.
lot to talk about. A lot has happened, and a lot has changed.
Absolutely.
So after this brief break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk a lot more about the newspaper itself, its effect here on Western New York, and all the changes that have happened in the newspaper industry. So it's going to be really interesting. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the Daily Buzz 716. We are continuing our discussion with Warren Colville, the president and publisher of the Buffalo News. And we're going to turn our attention now to some of the challenges that you face with the changes that have been so monumental, sea changes that have happened since you've become publisher in the newspaper industry. You don't know where to begin, right? Because there's been
Well,
so
I'll
many
begin.
changes.
I mean, I
Digital age. We can start with that. Yes.
I got some trouble before the show because I'm a newspaper junkie. I worked for newspapers for 30 years. I read 2 every day. I read the Buffalo News and the Wall Street Journal on paper. Online, I read 2 more. And so this morning, I'm reading my online NOLA.com, which used to be the Times-Picayune, which I used to work for, and 3 Gannett newspapers. Now, Gannett is a major
I know where you're going with that.
newspaper publisher in the country. 3 are going, daily newspapers are going to 3-day-a-week publication, which is where the Times-Picayune went in 2012, which broke my heart, broke a lot of people's heart. What's going on?
Well, that's a Newhouse.
Right.
And I worked for Newhouse before I came here. But just to address the thing about the reduced publishing days, and things are changing rapidly. But Warren Buffett and I had a conversation about this. He says, I don't know how you can be a daily newspaper if you don't publish every day.
Absolutely.
So And you know, from an economic point of view, you may not make money on your Monday paper or Tuesday paper, but I kind of look at it as the entire package for the week. And you want to be there. You want to be in people's homes every single day. So the thing that every paper's been struggling with is how to, I would say, evolve into a new business that still gets the information into people's homes. And you know, we've been doing a lot of stuff with our online, and we're the dominant website in Western New York and have been.
And the new redesign is great. I love the redesign. It looks like a real paper. You can go into it.
It's interesting. We have a lot of different ways that people can get that. In about 2 weeks, we're going to have a new iPhone app. The one we've got now is okay. This is way improved. That iPhone app. We have a new iPad app that'll be coming in the next couple of months. But
I get mine by email every day. Here's your Buffalo News today.
That is a phenomenon that we've had that for quite a while. We've changed the vendor that we were using, and we started to do this. And people said, oh, this is great. Well, we've been doing it for quite a while. It's just now you let people know that they can look at the paper just like it looks when you look at it in paper. But we have, right now we're doing about 27 million page views a month. So we have a lot of people who are consuming the news. I don't care how they get it, so long as they're reading us. And we still have, in the most recent surveys, over 70% of the people in Erie and Niagara County read the Buffalo News one way or the other. So it really is quite a phenomenon. It's way better than most papers anywhere in the country. I mean, like in LA, they used to have like 19% penetration.
LA's a terrible newspaper time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because there was a time when it was one of the greatest newspapers. So there's been a lot happening, and our job every day is to put out something that's compelling and that people want to read, stimulates their thinking. Maybe they don't like what they're reading, but they know that they're going to get some good, solid information from the Buffalo News.
And I would assume that one of your challenges is to monetize those electronic views.
It really is. The paper, we've got a way either in print, online. We are getting money online. We need to do more. But you just said the Wall Street Journal. Well, we deliver the Wall Street.
You deliver it. You do a great job. I love it.
We print the New York Times regional. We print the Batavia paper. Print a lot of college papers. We're making those $40 million presses work. We also deliver a lot of things.
You deliver the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, don't you?
We do USA Today, the New York Post. we're doing all of
the
it.
way you hire reporters or people? Do you need different type of qualifications or
we need people right now. We think about producing something for the web first, because it'll be most likely will be on the web before you'll see it in print. And so we need people that are very digitally savvy, and they know how to do that. And we're constantly working to get people in that have that expertise. And you know, some of these, see these young kids come in because those are the people that are really, really savvy. I mean, I was just saying at the break that my daughter, Waverly, she helped me set up my Twitter account. She says, Papa, you need to be doing this. And so I'm going, okay. She says, I'll help you. And then you send me stuff and I'll like it and I'll send it on.
Retweet.
Okay. Exactly.
Retweet the whole thing.
So now you have journalists that have been there for 30 years and now they have to go on Twitter.
They've got to learn a whole new
They have to learn a whole new universe and do live tapings and that kind of thing. How does that go over at the Buffalo News with these guys? Because I feel like there should be some kind of delineation. I just feel like my heart breaks for anyone that's been in the news, that started out as a paper boy, that has worked all these years and are now, they're so scaled down.
My best friend, who was a reporter at the Times-Picayune, when she's laid off, retired now, but right before they closed, or closed most of it in 2012, she said, they asked me to go on TV. I'm a reporter. They wanted me to go on TV 30 years ago when I was young and sexy. Now I'm not, and now they want me to be on TV. What's that about?
That's really the pets.
I know, but that's what they want on TV.
So what do you do?
I mean, people need to evolve with the times too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of our senior people who have embraced the new technology. I mean, if you go on Facebook or you go to Twitter and you look, I mean, a lot of our
But
senior people are
that's
there.
not just the paper, Connie. That's business
The world.
That's
everywhere.
life.
It
That's the world.
We're
Yeah.
talking about
know.
the newspaper though.
But isn't
right
there?
now.
But isn't there an
So-
expectation, though, in any business, right, that you're going to keep up with whatever's
Well,
the
I think
latest
the difference
change?
is
And
this
that is
change has
about-
been so-
And that is the key, the success to any business
So
is
huge,
to be
right,
able to
this one.
change with the times.
I mean, I remember when I was a.
But I'm
Well,
just
we're feeling
talking
sorry.
about the human factor here, of the reward of being
People that
great
work their way
journalists,
up.
delivering integrity and great pieces, and now are being called to. I mean, and I know this is nobody's fault. It's the way of the world, I suppose. But it just seems to me that every time I run into a news writer who has taken a buyout because it's just gotten so unbearable for them, it just breaks my heart that this is how this
It does.
beautiful industry ends for
but,
them.
But you know, they're lucky if they're at a place that gave them a buyout, because some don't.
Well,
So
we have
that's
to.
something.
We have to take a brief break. We have so much more to talk about, and also we want to discuss the paper itself and some of the issues to do with it. So you better stay with us because we have a lot more to talk about with Warren Colville. We'll take a brief break. Welcome back to the Daily Buzz 716. We are continuing our conversation today, which we hope you are as interested in as we are, with the publisher and president of Warren Colville of the Buffalo News, and the state of the Buffalo News and the state of newspapers in general. And of course, you didn't think you were going to get away from this table and from these ladies without us talking about the content of the newspaper itself. And so I'm sure you know that no matter what you do, somebody's going to criticize you, right? No matter what column there is, or what review, whether it be restaurants or editorials, whatever, they're always going to blame you, right? Isn't that what happens?
It is. I think generally, I don't think a lot of the average readers don't understand the difference between the editorial pages or columnist, and how we report the news. They're two really totally different things. So,
Well, I'd like to talk about that for a
Great.
minute. Let me just say, first of all, that we are so fortunate to have a good daily newspaper, because so many cities do not, including my hometown, don't have that anymore. But we have an excellent daily newspaper here. Now, we get it. The editorial page is, I think you would agree, mostly liberal. The editorials are pretty
Not
liberal.
since Margaret Sullivan left, though.
Perhaps less
It
so, but I
seems-
think the
seems
editorials.
more conservative
but
lately.
they
Does
also,
it?
for
Yeah.
instance, this was last week after Trump's congressional talk. Conservative. Today, one of the editorial cartoons in Today was quite conservative. It was Ramirez, who is my old buddy from the LA Times.
Right.
And so you have that up. But I think the thing that some people see, and I know a lot of these stories come from the New York Times or Washington Post News Service and the National, but Buffalo News people still write the headlines.
The failing New York Times?
No, is that what Trump says?
Is that what he
Or-
said? Isn't it?
But I mean,
Failing?
Buffalo News still writes the headlines, and there are days, for instance, on the jump page today, when four stories I think jumped to whatever the page was in the middle, every single one had a negative headline, and those are written. Trump is failing here. We're really trying to.
He's
Well,
failing.
okay, and I think that's a real. I mean, what do you? Is
Well,
that?
That happens.
So I guess there's a
What are
certainly,
you going to do, make it up?
Well, I think it's a perceived notion that Mary's getting at, that
And that's news,
they
that's
might
not
be
editorials.
slanted, you know.
Right.
Right. I read the paper like at 5:30 in the morning. Some things I'll look at during the night. If I can't sleep, I'll go online and look at what's already up. And what I want to see is a balance, especially on the editorials, the columnist side and all that.
Right.
I'm constantly saying we need to present both sides of the issue. So that's what you see on the editorial page or columnist.
Right.
And I'm saying, well, we need to have some more conservative columnists to kind of balance out some of the liberal ones that we carry. So we are doing that. As far as the headlines, when I read the paper, people hate me because I'll text them at 5:30 in the morning and say, this doesn't, my big thing right now is what's the difference, don't you know what the difference is between an immigrant and an illegal immigrant? So I'm constantly, I'm not saying we're perfect by a long shot, and we're certainly, if we screw up, I'm going to hear about it.
Well, and that's probably because of the grind. I mean, because there's so many cutbacks that when you have to produce these things.
I don't think that's an excuse.
I don't know that that's it. I think
imbalance.
that we don't want to be biased. That's one thing. But I always tell people everybody's biased. I mean, it just doesn't matter. I mean, you are.
Do you think it's gotten worse in the last election cycle? Has the bias gotten worse?
In the newspapers.
In the newspapers and on, particularly
in the media, I
newspapers.
guess, in the media
During
period.
reporting on Trump. Come on, let's say what the elephant in the room literally is. But.
Well, that's true. But the one thing, I might not like something they wrote about Trump. I mean, whether it's the New York Times, the Washington Post, or the Buffalo News, because I have my own opinions about it. But if it's true news, I have no complaint. Let me just say one thing about that. People are coming to the paper because they feel they can trust the information that they're getting. The New York Times, since the election, has gotten over 200,000 new digital subscribers that are paying for it. Now, I don't agree with a lot of things in the New York Times. I'm happy we do business together. But the fact is that people, if they're going to the internet or Facebook or Twitter, I don't even know if the stuff is true that's on there. I'll send it down to Mike Conley. I say, is this right? And he'll send me back and says, no, it's wrong. It's just fake news. So this whole fake news issue.
There is fake news.
There's fake news, and we have to be careful that we don't publish fake news.
Can I, with the whole fake news issue, and you started this segment talking about folks doing their columns and their opinions. I think one of the issues, and Mary's touching on it, people are. And anything that brings people to the news and to the paper and to search out real news is a good thing. So this controversy, having folks go towards the newspapers is a good thing, digital or not. But I know that myself, friends of mine, it's this big concern that now, am I reading straight up news, or am I reading the way a particular reporter has taken something that's real and true and then framed it?
You always are reading. Reporters always have to decide what they're reporting.
Sure.
However, but I think there's been a qualitative difference in the reporting on Trump. And Dean Baquet, who is the editor of the New York Times, at one point, I was his boss in New Orleans when I was city editor. At another point in LA, he was editor of the paper. He was my boss. So I know him quite well. He was on NPR before the election, during the campaign over the summer, explaining why the New York Times now accuses Donald Trump of lying. We'll say that in news stories. He said, we used to do this. We used to say, well, if some politician says, okay, the army is mobilizing next week, we'd say, well, he said that, but then here's the 4 generals saying, no, that's not true. He said, but Trump does this so much, we've decided we're going to say, when Trump lied when he said, they use lied in news, and I was floored.
Maybe
that's their judgment that he lied.
He's this crazy guy on Twitter saying the most insane things, and he's the one who's feeding the news.
Okay, and
he's telling us that he's crazy.
When they did the story about, and I think it was at the Times of the Post, they did the story about.
Mary's mad and she's not going to take it anymore.
No, Connie's telling us he's a liar.
When the Times did the story about his tax returns, remember, the big deal, he's not, but they found his tax returns. How'd they get his tax returns? Nobody ever explained. Oh, we got the first page of his tax. Nobody ever said where that came from. No. Now, did somebody steal it? Did they break in?
Is this a question?
Thank you.
Is this a question for?
No, I mean, how can you report on something where you don't say where it came from? That could have been fake news. That tax return that they supposedly nobody ever said, and nobody asked.
We do all these fact-checking things because there is so much stuff that you don't know whether it's true or not.
To filter through.
I mean, I read all the Trump stuff. And you know, I think in general the media has been really, really tough on him. I mean, and I'm saying that in a gentle way. And all I can tell you is that with me in my job, I look to try to have things balanced. I want to have them accurate. And as I said, people are not going to agree with everything that we write, but we are committed to giving the public good journalism. And you said it before, compared to most cities, the Buffalo News is, I mean, is a lot better.
And you know what is the journalist mantra about afflicting the comfortable? I mean, if anybody was more comfortable and more entitled, he gets every rough treatment he deserves because he is not. He's not a statesman. He's not.
What? Since when is the job description of president? You have to have been in the bureaucracy.
Hey, wait a minute. I thought we were talking about the Buffalo News.
Wait a minute. Yeah,
why can't we be tough on his predecessor?
Stop. We have to stop because first of all, we are not. You know, we're not supposed to be talking so much about that. It's about the news and what they're doing, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about all of.
Ignore.
We have to break. They're going to yell at me. We're going to come back, and when we come back, Mr. Colville is going to talk not so much about this, but also about other issues to do with the Buffalo News. So please stay with us. Welcome back to the Daily Buzz 716. We're talking with Warren Colville about the Buffalo News, and now we're going to turn our attention to recent projects and things that you may not be aware of. I know I was not, that the Buffalo News is involved with besides the newspaper I showed you before, right?
Right. I mean, we're constantly trying to do new things that makes us more valuable in the marketplace. And some things we've been doing for quite a while, but there's a couple of fun things that we've been working on here, and I'm glad we're into this segment. I don't have to talk about Donald Trump anymore, by the way. There was a newspaper in Hamburg, New York that actually it started in 1875, and the paper actually went out of business about a year ago, and we were able to acquire the name through a bankruptcy sale. We bought a lot of titles from this thing, and so we have, brought the Hamburg Sun back, and the people are just so excited. It's kind of the opposite of people.
Okay.
So it's really it's all stuff about schools, kids,
really connects to the community.
It's really the response has been amazing. So we're very excited about that, and we just started that a month ago. So that's one thing. The other thing that we've been doing is we're getting into book publishing, and we put out a book about the wall of snow when we had the big snowstorm.
The blizzard?
Snowmageddon!
And it was amazing the response we got. We sold like 12,000 of those books, and Wegmans, and people bought it online. They loved it. It was a great gift for people. So with that, we started to do. Buffalo loves old memories, and we put out the book that's on the table here, Headlines in History. That's like 15 years ago we put it out, and thousands and thousands of those were sold, but it was great. All front pages that were important over the last 100 years. So we put out, these are all Buffalo memories. This was a book that we put out about a year ago, and we've just published Buffalo Memories 2. And so these are pictures that we have from our archives. We got stuff from the History Museum, and yes, exactly. And we had people.
Plug for Connie.
Shout out to the History
Exactly.
Museum.
And what we were able to do is get people to bring in their old photos, and we scanned them and used them in the book. It was so much fun.
Yeah, we assist that project. It was great.
It was so much fun. And then we had, so Buffalo Memories 2 is still out.
Love these books.
Which is great. And then we did a book for all the veterans of Western
Now,
New
is
York.
this part with all the interviews that were done on the Metro page every day?
Yes.
Those are great. I love reading
Lou
those.
Michel,
Right.
he's fantastic.
Yes.
And so
Go
we,
Lou.
we have that, and we're doing a book now on the blizzard of '77. We think it's going to be unbelievable.
That'll be, yeah.
So we're trying to do different things, and look of how do we get people to consume some of the things that
Things
we
like
have.
this keep you relevant.
It's amazing the good response we get to those kind of things. We publish a magazine every month that is getting better and better. I mean, this is a recent one, but the reason I wanted to mention that is we are actually partnering with the partnership, and we're doing the Athena Awards with them, and we're going to give a special award to a Say Yes student, one of the young ladies that's in the
Oh, wow.
So it's coming out next week, guys.
There's a lot of great community.
Yes.
community. What about Kids Day? That's something too that it's not a publishing, but it's a charity
supported
that's
by
a
the
big.
Buffalo News.
So
That raises-
I'm so glad you
We
brought
should
that
talk
up.
about that.
Yeah.
We had, we've been doing this for a long time. Millions of dollars have been raised. It's a fun day. Everybody gets involved in the community. So I went last week for a tour of the new Women's and Children's Hospital, Oshai Women's Children's Hospital, and they have actually dedicated a room to us because of all the things that we've done to Buffalo News, and I'm like, oh, this is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So these are reasons why we need a local
The
newspaper,
Buffalo
why we
News
still have a
invests.
newspaper.
And the Buffalo News invests in our community. Whether we're happy with everything that's in the Buffalo News or not, you invest in Western New York, and that's a big.
And
And whether you're
cover
happy
it
or
and write
not, you need
stories
to know
about it.
what's in there. You
That's
really do know
exactly
what's going on.
And cover the area and talk about, and even if we disagree with the critics of a show.
We always disagree with the critics of a show,
or a restaurant, or
If it's a
even
bad review,
I
yeah.
can't think. But even if we disagree with the opinion page or something, the point is, I think that we're all trying to make is we're so lucky and happy that we have our own newspaper that does
7 days a week.
concentrate.
And
Yes.
it makes us
7 days a
think,
week.
even if we
7 days a week.
agree or
Because
disagree,
we're not
you
going to
can't
find
read
out
it
these
nothing.
things by reading the failing New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or some other county newspaper.
There are things that you can't get anywhere but the Buffalo News. The story we did on that Finding Nitmo was unbelievable, and the Burmese story that we did was
And the
incredible.
That was
ones we
incredible.
have to shout out
Love
to
that
about the veterans every day. That wonderful story.
Lou Michel,
series.
he's phenomenal.
We love him. We know.
We
him.
love Lou.
Hey, thanks. We're almost out of time here. We're going to come back with a few after the short break with a few little summations. So please stay with us. Welcome back to the Daily Buzz 716. We just want to update you with really good news from the Buffalo News online. Buffalo police located the girl that we were talking about on the Amber Alert today, and all is well as far as her safety goes. So we want to tell them that that did work.
Thank you, Buffalo News, for reporting that.
Okay, so we thought it would be fun to close out our first week on the air with a quick toast, and our guest is a wine connoisseur, so we fit this right in. And what we want to do is toast ourselves, I don't know, and Warren for being with us on this very first week, very special week to us, and we hope that it's going to be special to you, and we hope we're going to be a habit. We want to be a habit with you, a good habit, that you watch us every single day, 5 days a week, because we have so many more interesting programs for you. And we want to thank Warren Colville for joining us today on our first week and for ending our first week. And again, thank you all to our viewers. Right. We are not, we are drinking this, but none of us are driving after we leave the studio today.
Oh, after today, I need a drink.
I
Oh, my
assure you,
goodness.
okay? Please join us again for the Daily Buzz. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and we are looking forward to seeing you again on Monday. And thank you again, Warren. And cheers.
Thank you so
Really
much.
nice. I'll thank whoever doesn't
And
want
to
to.
our audience, thank you.
If we give Warren wine, maybe he'll come back.
And we're hoping, yes.